Okay, hello, and thank you for listening to our video, tuning into our video. So, today we're going to be talking about how to conduct effective job interviews. So, I'm still in the topic of recruitment because I believe even though recruitment is sometimes overlooked, but it is very critical. It's a critical role when it comes to the human resources management function because things don't go wrong, they usually start wrong. So during the interview process or the recruitment process, that is where actually you'll be able to identify your potential candidates for any opportunities for growth, for succession planning opportunities, development opportunities, any outstanding leadership qualities that you might identify during the selection process. So you'll be able to do this through your interviews and through professional assessment tools like your psychometric assessment. So today, okay, again, I'm going to be looking at my notes. Sorry that I was swinging. Hope that did not distract you. So again, today I'm going to be referring to my notes. So my eyes will be drifting from the camera to my notes again. That's just to make sure that I follow a consistent process that I laid out for the interviews. Okay, so conducting effective job interviews. So let me tell you a story when I first started. As I mentioned in the video of our company, like the story about our company, my like during the early days of my career when I had less than a year's experience in the human resources field, I worked at a laboratory as a human resources officer. So I was a human resources officer, but at the time they split our functions in such a way that there were three HR officers. So there was an HR officer who was responsible for industrial relations, there was an HR officer who was responsible for benefits, and then there was an HR officer who was responsible for recruitment. So I was that HR officer that was responsible for recruitment. So I was given a task, like, because I showed like a lot of enthusiasm and everything else, like when I started. So I was given with a task of recruiting a nurse. They required a nurse because it was a laboratory. So I did not know anything except what I had studied at varsity, and they did not tell us about interviews or outcome-based interviews, taking notes during interviews, or even if they did tell us, I most probably forgot. You know how at varsity you just learn and you cram just to pass, you know. I'm not saying that there's nothing that I took away from varsity. Of course, there's a lot that I took away. So the story there at the laboratory, I was tasked with interviewing a nurse. So I interviewed nurses, or rather, recruiting nurses. So I interviewed nurses, and at the time, I did not have a structured questionnaire or set of questions. So I would just, like, the nurse would come in and then try, like, scramble in my head, what can I ask? Let me think of a question. This sounds like a great question. So they came this other nurse. You know, there's some people, like, they've got these what can I say, maybe bossy thing about them. Like, they come in, maybe they intimidate you or something, and then you just feel like you don't like them. So before I even asked their question, I already decided that I don't like her and I'm not gonna take her. So I just, like, and I also, like, lost interest sort of in her. So I just, like, asked maybe one or two questions just to not say straight out, no, I don't like you, therefore you're not gonna be hired. So I just asked maybe one or two or three random questions. Then I said, thank you, I'll give you feedback. So after maybe a couple of days, if not a day's time, I told her that she was unsuccessful for the position, unfortunately. So she was very, as I said, that she had those, those fighter, bossy kind of personalities. She had that personality, you know. So she called and then she said she wants to know exactly why has she not been successful for the position. She knows she's got experience. She knows she meets all the requirements that were advertised in the position that I advertised. So she wants to know why was she not successful, and she wants me to write it down on email. She's going to take it to her lawyer. Yeah, so you can imagine. But in any case, I always believe, and I still believe, that we are disciples. We are here to learn. We are here to teach. You know. So that was a learning curve for me when it comes to the recruitment sphere. So what I learned from that is that I need to keep an interview guide. I need to keep records. I need to be consistent. I need to be fair. I need to be objective. So I do not need to hire people based on whether I like them because of our personalities. You know, that has nothing to do with the job or the culture fit of the person into the organization. That I must not make decisions based solely on my feelings or emotions. So after that, I told my then HR manager. I was very, very scared. And then she recommended training for me. So it was outcome-based interviews. It was a course for 3 days. So I attended that course, and it was quite very informative. And then from then on, I learned to keep my interviews objective. I learned to keep notes. I learned to ask questions that were relevant to the position that I was looking to fill. So I ask around behaviors that are required for that kind of position. For example, you won't ask somebody questions based on leadership skills unless, especially if that is not a leadership role, unless you want to assess the person's future development, something like that, or maybe problem solving skills. Maybe the job is just a routine day-to-day job that does not require problem solving skills. However, you do need somebody maybe that can stick to routine. So you'd ask questions around that, maybe somebody who can follow a planned timetable. So that's what I learned. Okay, so let's go to the definition of recruitment. The definition of interviews. So interviews, it's a conversation between a job applicant and a representative of the employer to assess whether the candidate should be hired. So it's also an assessment tool. So that's why it is essential that it is objective and it is unbiased as well. So when you interview a job applicant, so it's the necessary cosmetics, like making them feel comfortable, making them feel welcome, because when people are nervous, most don't think very well. So you wanna position the applicant to be able to give their best as well, so that you don't reject a person only to find out that they were too nervous to give you proper answers. Okay. And then you cannot discriminate unfairly during an interview. So what is unfair discrimination? So unfair discrimination is any discrimination based on race, gender, sex, pregnancy, or intended pregnancy, marital sex. I'm just referring to them because I don't want to miss any of them out. Ethnic or social origin, color, sexual orientation, age, disability, religion, conscience, belief, culture, language, birth, employment, and then the employment equity also prohibits against the discrimination based on family responsibility and HIV status. Okay, so now we've gone over what is unfair discrimination. What is fair discrimination? So fair discrimination would be discrimination based on affirmative action, but also remember, you cannot just employ somebody just because they're black and they're female when they meet none of the requirements of the job. Okay, so that also has its own guidelines, which I will elaborate on maybe at a separate video or at a later blog that I will write. And then, so what is fair discrimination? I mentioned it's affirmative action, and then it's if it's in the inherent requirements of a job. For example, let's say maybe the job is the person will be working around hazardous fumed, confined spaces, maybe extremely high temperatures. So a pregnant person, it might endanger their safety and the safety of their unborn child. So then you would discriminate and not take a person that is pregnant. So it's important as well to remember that when you interview, do not ask discriminatory questions that have nothing to do with a job. For example, asking if somebody is gay, asking if somebody is planning to be pregnant in the next couple of years, when it has nothing to do with their ability of performing the job, or it has nothing to do with the job. In fact, maybe it might trigger some of your beliefs that makes you discriminate against them, say maybe for religious or whatever reasons, maybe you don't agree with the lifestyle maybe of homosexuals, so then you find yourself discriminating when it has nothing to do with a job. So again, you're being subjective instead of being objective. And then tips and reminders to remember or to take away with after watching this video when it comes to interviews is that you must keep your questions standardized so that the interview is fair and consistent to all the applicants, so that no applicant is advantaged over another one, and then you end up maybe picking a weaker candidate based on that their interview was easier than the rest of the candidates. So you want to make the questions consistent, fair and equal, making sure that you hire the best candidate or the best applicant for the position, the one who performed the best, And then remember to keep the notes so that if you are challenged, like how I was challenged in my earlier days, you're able to prove and you're able to explain why the person was not appointed. You'd be able to say that no, they did not display this and that behavioral quality that is required for the position. And then remember to conduct outcome-based interviews as well. So those are interviews based on behaviors, behavioral based interviews, if you want to call it. So they go on the assumption that past behavior. What happened there? Okay, let me continue. I don't know why.